is the Landyachtz Dinghy Blunt. It's a mini longboard cruiser, and I've never actually skated one of these before, but I used to skate popsicle decks in high school. So they're a little different, but pretty much the same thing. Super stoked to take this out for a ride. I just haven't had a chance to because the weather has been terrible, raining almost every day. But yeah, I got this mainly for myself heading into the new year because I just wanted to be a bit more active in my life. I purchased rollerblades about a year ago, hoping to do the same, but don't get me wrong, I love my rollerblades, but they're just not the most convenient thing. They're just bulky, heavy. You have to switch out your shoes. It's just a lot. Compared to this, the Landyachtz Dinghy Blunt, it's significantly smaller and just overall way more practical to carry around. The new year is probably my favorite time of the year, not because of the countdown or all the parties that typically accompany this holiday. I love it simply because it's more of a celebration of life. You made it another year on this planet. What are you gonna do with such a blessing? Whether you like this holiday or not, it sparks this conversation in everyone about their resolutions, right? Aside from skating and being a bit more active in my life, my resolution this year is to expand my portfolio with portrait photography because it's a niche that I've been meaning to explore further. And actually, towards the end of 2022, I went on 2 portrait shoots. So I just want to keep that momentum going into the new year and just flesh out my portfolio. I just wanted to share my experience and what I learned on these photo shoots to hopefully act as guidance or tips for anyone watching this that's hoping to do the same. Maybe it'll inspire someone to try other styles of photography they're not used to. Regardless of all that, let's get into some tips. My first shoot was at a pretty popular beach location called Sunset Cliffs. I have a photo here that I took a couple of years ago at this same location, so let's open it up and capture one. As you can see, it's called Sunset Cliffs for a reason, and tourists flock from all over the world to visit, including myself actually, before I even moved here. It's just a great scenic location that offers spectacular views. This is one of my favorite photos taken with my Fujifilm X-T4, and it brings back a lot of good memories just using this camera. The vibrant clouds in the sky are just breathtaking in person. I mean, just look at the color rendition you get with the Fujifilm system. It's just completely on point. So on the day of the shoot, it was actually quite crowded for a Monday, and the weather was actually questionable up until that point because it had actually rained the weekend prior. There were legit gray clouds as we were driving, and it wasn't looking good for us, but somehow we got lucky and got blessed with a beautiful sunset while we were shooting. Which leads me into my first tip, and that is to know your location. Going a week beforehand to scout the area can only help you. You get a feel for how busy it is and what the parking situation looks like. Nothing is guaranteed on the day of, just like with my shoot and with all of the uncertainties, but you could prepare for it as much as possible. My shoot specifically relied on knowing the weather and when the sun was going to set. So I just used the weather app on my phone to see the hourly forecast. It'll show you approximately when sunset will be that day, and I just use that to coordinate meeting with my clients. I try to give myself 1 to 2 hours before in order to have enough time and light for my photos. So I went ahead and bought a small light reflector. I got this fairly cheap one off Amazon from the newer brand. I didn't want anything too expensive or too big because actually my girlfriend was gonna be holding this thing, so it needed to be practical in size. Which brings me into my second tip, and that is to use the gear that you can afford. I still use cameras and lenses that would be considered outdated, but they're more than capable of producing high quality photos. My X-T2 paired with a really nice prime lens like the XF35mm is still a top combo for me despite the pretty bad autofocus. I opted for something much cheaper with the reflector compared to, say, a new portrait lens, but the benefits were substantial to providing more light. Regardless of how wide open that portrait lens may have been to let in more light, I still would have had the same problem of having a backlit scene. So just being smart with your gear purchases goes a long way and puts all of your stuff to use when you buy with a purpose. The entire shoot went by so quick because there was a sense of urgency that I felt from racing against the sun and just making sure I took enough photos. There was also the added pressure of it being my first real photo shoot, so that just caused unnecessary stress for myself. This pace definitely messed with my flow because I started to make little mistakes that basically ruined some photos, but I thankfully realized shortly after we started, so it wasn't a complete nightmare. Which leads to my next tip, and that is to be aware of your camera settings. I shot in manual mode with autofocus on shutter press, so I had a few extra things to think about in regards to my settings. And there's already so much going on, like directing my subjects with poses and whatnot, so if you wanted to minimize the amount of variables during a shoot, then it's completely fine to just shoot in auto or even just aperture priority mode, just so you're not scrambling with your settings and you can focus on more important things like composition. I kind of learned this the hard way, but after seeing the photos on my computer later on, I realized that shooting wide open isn't necessarily the best option. I shoot with Fujifilm's prime lenses that open up to 1.4 and they're super fun to shoot with, right? Putting it wide open, getting all that bokeh, tons of fun. But you're gonna wanna stop down your f-stop to 2 or 2.8 for singles and couples. If there's even more people than that, or even a pet, which is what happened on my second shoot, that means you're gonna have to stop down to at least 4 or 5.6, even more if you want everyone to be in focus. Most people could care less about bokeh. Let's be real. The average person has no idea what that word means or even how to spell it. At the end of the day, you're here to provide your client with sharp, beautiful photos. So if I show up with a photo and only a sliver is in focus, while the rest is just a big blob of bokeh, they're not gonna be happy about that. I was fortunate enough to work with friends for my first shoots, so we were already pretty comfortable with each other, but it would have been really different if we were complete strangers, right? That's why it's important to get to know your clients. A pre-shoot consultation over the phone or Zoom is the best way that you can connect with them and you can iron out the details so that everyone's on the same page. I knew beforehand that my friends wanted to include their golden retriever in the photo shoot, so I had to be very strategic about my location choice, right? There was no way we were going to a crowded park that would just be riddled with distractions, so we landed on a hiking trail that I actually found on Google Maps just scouting one day for new locations. And it actually turned out really well for us. We were basically the only ones there, aside from a few hikers here and there, but we were pretty much left alone. I learned so much on just these few shoots alone, and I hope that my experience can be something that not only I learn from, but you as well. I'll leave you guys with one last thing, and that is to just keep an open mind. Be willing to work with anyone and everyone, because every lead can open up a new opportunity. Starting off with close friends like me is a solid foundation to build from. You just gotta keep shooting. All right, that's gonna be it for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.